All right. So a little bit pissed off. I just recorded this and I have to record it again because I didn't click optimize for screen sharing. When you watch film and record it, that's a necessity. So make sure I got it. Yeah. All right. So basically what this is going to be is when I first I've been a football coach for some time now, and it's one of those things where you get in, you realize that there isn't a book or a website you can go to that'll teach you everything. And a lot of what it is that I learned is all from the guys that you just so happen to work for when you start. And then when you continue on, each staff that you work for and the guys that are older than you learn what they know and their specific philosophies. And it was always kind of bothersome to me that there isn't just a book I can go read on coverages and things like that. I'm sure there are, but none are really trusted because guys keep their philosophies close to the vest, and the only people that get to know them are the staff that work for them, and sometimes even that is private, and they keep some things away from other staff. So it is kind of a gatekeeping kind of a deal where you're at the mercy. Your knowledge is only going to be as good as the ones that you've worked for, and it's kind of a crappy thing, but it's also why I'm doing this. So I want to kind of provide the average guy who likes football and hopefully loves football, that wants to know more about what the hell's going on out there, and see kind of the overall general themes. I'll get into more advanced stuff as I go, but this will be very hopefully things you've never heard of or heard a little bit of, and it'll give you more in-depth detail. But this will hopefully be a little bit of an insider scoop to some of the aspects of football that I've learned about. So I'm a Division I college football coach and position coach. It's probably as far as I want to go with saying who I am. I'd rather just keep this about football. I think it's the best game in the world, and there's a lot going on when you load up a game and you start watching. Most people would be like, there's so much going on right now. But ultimately, in the run game, which is what we're going to talk about today, in the run game, there's really kind of everybody's doing similar stuff. And then as the shit goes on, it gets more complicated, but everybody's doing similar stuff. It's just the differences is how you teach it, and your philosophy with it. So if you watch a game and you watch all the run plays, you might be saying to yourself, well, this is, my God, man, this is there's a lot of freaking different plays being run here. But in reality, there's about probably 10 different play types of plays that inside zone, outside zone, mid zone, gap schemes, man schemes. There's some other ones, your draws, your options and duo, things like that. But they're all relatively under those umbrellas, and everybody runs them. Some teams major in one of them, but everyone runs them. The complications come with the different variations of those plays. So what we're going to talk about today is what I believe is the most common play. Everybody definitely runs it, and it's definitely run probably at the least 7-8 times a game by every team, and it's just a simple run play, inside zone. All right, so inside zone, everybody runs it, right? But it's how you teach it that makes it different. The philosophy is different. All right, but what makes inside zone inside zone? What makes inside zone inside zone is the running back's aiming point is usually somewhere from here to here, right? The front side leg of the center, if you're running the play to the right, or some teams run it the backside leg of the center if you're running it to the right, right? If you're running it to the left, to be the opposite, obviously. All right, but nothing about this play, right, that you're seeing here is unique, right? This is just inside zone. The tight end being involved is not always the case, but these guys, I'm about to describe, what their jobs are, is relatively similar in every game or team that runs the same play. Their job is relatively similar because of the fact that this is where the running back is running and aiming at when he gets the ball. Now, it's extremely important for the running back to press the aiming point, right? You always hear about the cutbacks, right? Oh, you saw that crazy cutback, right? It went for 60 yards, right? The only way a cutback can happen is if two things happen first. One, the quarterback has to set the running back on his correct aiming point, right? So you'll see the quarterback here does a great job of getting the running back downhill, right at the aiming point, the front side leg of the center, right? So he does a good job with his ankle and where his ankles are pointing, right, while keeping his eyes on his RPO indicators, right? He does a great job, and now the running back has to press that point. The reason the running back has to press the point is because you want to elicit the reaction of the linebackers, right? In this case, you can see number 7 here, I believe what's going on, and you can see number 95 here, their defensive lineman is looks like he's coming to play this gap. I believe he's a C gap player. He's the edge setter. I believe he's got this A gap with the Sam out here responsible for the B gap, right? He's not accounted for. We'll get to that in a second. He's accounted for by the quarterback with an RPO. But so what we're talking about here is pressing the point, right? If he doesn't press the point, number 7 doesn't feel threatened front side in his front side of his gap. He can do a little bit more to kind of sit back and wait to make sure that the running back doesn't cut it back right now. If he just starts cutting it back right now, boom, he's going to be right there on the backside, right? You're going to be unaccounted for. There's no way he can get to him, right? The same thing can be said for number 24, right? If number 24 sees the running back cut back right now, he can just sit here and wait in his gap. But if the running back presses to what we say about 1.5 yards behind wherever the center is at the point where when he gets there, if he doesn't get to that spot, he's not going to feel like he needs to play his backside gap, and boom, he can fly up the field right now, right? Start making a play, right, when you get to that spot. So there's a lot of different things that you benefit from when the running back presses, presses the point. All right, so when he does that, right, you see the reactions you get. Obviously, this is an RPO tag. He doesn't hand it off, but you can see, right, if he did press the point like he does here and then cut it back, right, that's awesome, right? That's absolutely what you want. Now, a lot of the times, what I've started to see become more and more important for the running back is usually you tell him, you're reading this block. Whatever way he wins, you want to go to the opposite gap, right? So if this guy wins across your center's face, right, and you can call it winning, but whichever way he declares, if he goes across the center's face right now, then you got to hit it out the front side, right? But what actually you end up seeing a lot of the times is the secondary part of his read ends up being more important. So if that guy now plays the backside gap and you're hitting the front side, and this guy, boom, shoots through this A gap right now you can push it out the front B gap, right? So if this guy flies outside here, right, then you can push it all the way back, right? If he plays backside, you're hitting it right in the hole you were going for in the first place, right? So there's two kind of reads for the running back himself. All right. But you can see kind of how this thing's playing out, right? Every single run play has an aiming point for the running back, and it's vitally important in the zone schemes that we talk about that he presses the point as much as possible before he makes his decision on where he's going to actually go with the ball. But you can see like the differences in inside zone is how are you going to tell these two guys that they need to be in relation to the read spot, right? Getting to this guy, like how are you going to teach these guys for all accounts, whatever shade this guy is, whatever leverage he is, whether he's inside, outside, how can you account for all the different ways that this block can occur in the simplest and most efficient way? That's kind of the differences in philosophies and why everybody might run the same play, but some guys run it better than others because they teach it better somehow. They do a better job of accounting for all the different ways that the picture can change. But cutbacks cannot happen without those two things. All right. But inside zone specifically, all right, usually what you tell the offensive line, the quarterback, tight end, everybody, you tell them inside zone is the point is the first thing head up to play side of the center, right? So in this case, obviously Pitt's got a little bit of a different deal here. They're lag gapping for this front side A gap with the B gap player playing all the way out there, right? So really you don't have any threat on the front side, head up the front side. So you just game plan for it. He's actually the point. All right, now you've got your minus here because he's away from the call side of the play, and your plus is outside of the picture. You can't see him, but that's your plus out there. All right, so what you say is, right, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys. We can account for 6 guys on the offensive line and the tight end, right? We're not going to account for more guys than we can block with our bodies, right? We've got 6 for 6 guys. They've got 6 guys in the box, but now you can start to see, right, the Sam becomes that he's not really an extra fitter because he does have gap responsibility, but they're going to try and bring usually the Sam or the free safety, the safety away from the Sam, right? They're going to bring one of those 2 guys in to try and be the extra guy that you can't account for with your offensive line. And that's where RPOs come in, right? To manipulate this guy for the quarterback to account for him as opposed to the offensive line. So what you can see happen here, right? First thing, head up to play side. Remember, this is kind of a rule breaker. And there's your minus. We're saying we're accounting for him, all the down linemen, right? And we're accounting for the point and the minus. That's inside zone. All right. Inside zone, you're accounting for the point and the minus, your base rules. That's what you're telling the offensive line. All right. And so what that means is the point is usually 95% of the time, usually who the center is working to. Everything else, every other block is dependent on who the point is and who the center is working to, right? When you know this guy is the point, every single person in this picture then knows what their block is, right? So this guy is going to be man on. These 2 guys are going to combo up to the point. This would be like a very plug inside foot to near number, near foot to near number, we say. Inside foot to near number, whatever you want to call it. These 2 guys are moving vertically, pushing this guy, waiting for 7 to commit either way. And that guy that he commits to side is the one that comes off of the double team, right? And takes the point over, right? These 2 guys now know that they're 2 for 2 with this down lineman to the minus. So he's going to say, I'm going to block you. And I'm going to tell him as an O-line coach, I would tell him, hey, you are not going to try and overtake this guy unless 24 flies over the top. So long as 24 stays backside, you can go basically vertical. You might be able to give him a meat hook or chip him on the way up, right? But you're basically telling this guy, you're on your own for the most part. Protect this read spot. So beat him inside out, right? Protect that read spot, and you're just chipping him on your way up, if anything, to the minus. And then the tight end here, backside, knows he has the next down lineman. This guy right here, if the safety, let's say, walked up, he would have the most dangerous of the 2 guys, right? We can't account for an extra one after that. That's who we're accounting for. Everybody else on the field is responsible, is accountable by this quarterback right here. Right. So that's where RPOs come in, right? You have all these different RPOs to take care of different level defenders, right? You've got, and I hope that was clear. I'm trying to point to the quarterback there, not the running back, but you've got RPOs to take care of 2nd level defenders and 3rd level defenders based on when you game plan, you say, all right, well, in this formation, when we line up in 2x2 with an attached tight end to the boundary, the Sam has the B gap most of the time. And so we're going to account for the Sam. If he wants to come in, we're going to account for him with, let's say, a short post by number 2, right? Have him, right? You want to bring your Sam in and he be the extra fitter. Great. We're going to throw off of him. Now this safety's down, so you'd have to use leverage, right? In this case, hopefully you'd really want to run a speed out or something if he's got inside leverage, right? But you're going to say, if you want to bring this guy into the box and into the line of scrimmage, great. All right. In that case, we're going to throw off of him. And defenses, they say, okay, if you want to throw off of this Sam, then we can play cover 1 and bring our safety down, play over the overhang, right? And now you run a post safety man coverage, but that means you got to have some good athletes on defense, right? So that's kind of the chess game of football, right? Where one coach does one thing and the other one does the other, right? In this case here, they're saying that they want to essentially, I believe they're reading the free safety here. So they got a glance on the backside. All right. So they're saying that the free safety is the guy they want to account for here, and they'll run off of the Sam. All right. But you can see pre-snap, even the quarterback pointed to the Sam because he knew he was throwing the glance based on the depth of this safety and the demeanor of this safety. So he told the running back pre-snap, if you watch him point, he says, watch him, right? The running back says, I got him, right? He knows he's not going to actually hand it off to him. And then he presses the read spot still to try and get the linebackers to bite up down uphill, right? And then you see him snap out to go get the Sam, right? These are all things going on pre-snap in this play, right? So that's kind of where the RPO comes in, right? You're going to account for this guy and this guy with this guy, right? Puts a lot of stress on him, a lot of pressure on him, right? But that's the point. That's the aiming point. That's pressing it, right? The point, the minus, right? All of these things have to be communicated in a very short period of time, starting with this guy, then to this guy, right? He's got to communicate to all these guys, right? Everybody has to be on the same page. All right. So this would be, right, we talked, this is inside zone, right? We are talking about inside zone in this video. So in inside zone, there's a bunch of different variations of it, right? That's kind of the difference. Like inside zone is inside zone because of where the running back is aiming, right? That's what we said in the very beginning, right? But there's a bunch of different ways to run inside zone. This is called split zone. You'll hear it called split zone, right? What split zone is saying, all right, first thing, head up to play side, right? They're probably going to make him the point, make him the minus, right? Just by game plan, right? It's pretty obvious here, right? You probably could have figured that out on your own, just looking at this pre-snap. Who are you going to account for? I'm going to go man here with the play side tackle. These two guys will combo, right? All the way up to 24, who's the point, and your minus here is going to be all the way. He's going to have to make it all the way there. So what you would do instead, right, is you'd probably say, yeah, man on, but the center's working to the point, we said, right? So if that's your point, I might tell him, hey, as the center, I'll tell him, hey, I'm chipping him on maybe if he plays into me, but otherwise I'm just going to get on my horse and just seal this guy off. I got good leverage on him for the read spot, right? All of that has to be said in one or two words, right? So you make up names for all these different leverages and things like that, right? And now these two guys have a very tough mentality, right? They've both got to be on their horse to cut off this guy. He's got to hopefully overtake. You probably just tell him, wash him down, right? And then he's going to come up for the minus, right? And now the reason you tell him, hey, I'm okay with, the reason you would tell your players, we're okay with you washing on this play is because, right, this ball, if you press this and this guy stays true to the front side, right, if you press this, these two guys have a pretty good angle to just wash both of them, right? And if that's the case, then the wind back, the amount of horizontal space for the wind back is dependent on how fast this dude can get across and block this guy, right? That is what split zone is. The tight end is cutting across the line of scrimmage to block the first thing off the edge, usually the C-gap player, right? So you tell him, you cut across the first thing off the edge and create as much horizontal space as you possibly can between these two guys as double team and yourself, so that when this wind back happens, you can see what it would turn into, right? When you get a good cut block by the tight end or split zone flow, tied, whatever you want to call it, when you get a good one by the tight end, it's usually huge because you got leverage on the other two. So again, though, the RPO comes into play again, right? You can see it happen here. All right, you watch the Sam here, number 38 right here, really good in coverage, right? He goes and gets involved in the box. The quarterback's got a bubble screen here. All right, he's going to throw off of the safety because he thinks the safety's, and I'm talking about this guy, the safety. He thinks the safety's far enough off, and he trusts this guy to be able to block him, right? And so he's going to say, I'm going to throw off here. Now, I believe they have the wide receiver push cracking here, which is what we call it. All it is this receiver thinks he's got man coverage, so he knows he's going to follow him wherever he goes. So instead of trying to block him and leaving him free, he's going to take a couple steps at him, right? Make sure he's in man and then go crack the safety, knowing that this guy's going to take at least a couple steps with him because he's got him in man coverage until he realizes what's going on. Yeah, that's exactly what happens there, right? So you can see how that all that teaching kind of falls into the same play. Like all these things, whether it's expensive or not, is based on how hard it is to teach, what we call expensive. All right. Now, the other difference in philosophy is what you like running it at, right? Do you like running inside zone at A gap player? Usually you don't, just because of the fact that you're trying to run it into that A gap, right? Now, if you have if your inside zone play is a backside leg of the center aiming point, then you might like running it at an A gap player, right? So all these things kind of come into play and are different based on who kind of thinks what on your staff. All right, so that'd be split zone. The other ways you can run it, I believe they motion here. All right, the other ways you can run it, like these two clips we saw in the beginning, and now this one, right? We can see they're running inside zone. They have a tight end, but they're running it away from the tight end, right? That's called weak zone. When you have a tight end and you run it at the tight end, that's referred to as strong zone. And there's other types of zone plays as well. Like we'll see one coming up here in a bit, but there's zone insert, right? So same aiming point for the running back, but instead of, right, first thing, head up to play side is this guy. So he's your point. Here's your minus. These guys are doing the same thing. Center is going to work to the point. All right. But instead of having these two guys combo up for the minus there, instead, you're going to insert your tight end for the minus, right? And these two guys will be man on. Right. So that's kind of the difference. That would be called zone insert. This is still just regular weak zone, right? Running zone away from a tight end. All right. So zone insert, right? We've got strong zone, weak zone, right? It all looks a little bit different, but it's the same play, right? You can teach it the same way. There's just now nuances and things like that that we've got to account for. All right. All right, so you can see, right, it becomes very, very incredibly important, right? Here's your point, here's your minus, all right? It becomes incredibly important for these guys to all have very good technique and consistent technique in their understanding of the aiming point. So as 72 right here, the right guard, if they're running inside zone at you, you've got to take this step vertically at him so that you give the center a chance to take over, right? And you really want the center to stay inside out on him, but you have to take enough of him so that you can still get to the point, right? You still want to be able to vertically get up to the point and come off and protect that read spot, which is right there. But you have to get enough of them so the center still has a chance. Now, when 72 whiffs here, because 8 makes a really good swim move, 72 whiffs, all of a sudden now he's way too far upfield. He's given up the spot for number 24 to come off and make that play. Right? Same thing for 77, right? His job right now is to cut this guy off from the read spot, right? This is where the running back's trying to get to. If 7 threatens up the field right now, you've got to go, right? So you have to account for that in your steps, in your footwork. You have to make sure he knows, this left guard knows that not only does he know, but also he knows that he's really got to take a step to cut this guy off. He can't be screwing around with this backside guy all the time, right? He's got to only really take 77, has to only really take that defensive tackle if that guy plays into him. He's far too heavy on the inside of this block, right? 66 isn't urgent enough to take it over, right? 7 does obviously a great job. All right, now what I will say is it looks like 7's gap is this one. So 77's not wrong here, I wouldn't say. But you can see, right, if this ball did get handed off and pressed to the aiming spot and 7 was a little bit more aggressive to get to his gap, right, then 77 would have a really hard time getting off to him. Now it's completely out of the picture now when 7 abandons his gap and comes all the way over back to the front side of the play. Now it's just we're pretty much good as long as we can wind it back, right? So you can see if he did hand this off, that could have happened. All right, but again, we see RPOs come into play here. I believe they get into the invert. Yeah, they run a little invert cover 1 here where the Sam drops to the post. All right, everybody else is in man coverage. All right, now if you're a quarterback coach or an offensive coordinator, you'd be a little bit mad about this decision initially. Obviously, it works out, so it's a no, yes situation, right? But you'd be a little bit annoyed that this happens because you're running the ball into even numbers, right? You've got now this again. We didn't talk about zone read, right? So zone read, all that is right. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 offensive linemen. We can only account for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can't account for him anymore, right? So zone read is saying now the quarterback is going to read him, right? And as long as we read him and make sure we only hand it off if he doesn't crash down and becomes a threat to the play, right? If we don't account for this guy, we're screwed. So we say the quarterback reads him, right? If this guy does crash down, the quarterback replaces him, right? And just runs the ball. That's what you mean when you call zone read. So you can see, right, in this look right here, if that guy doesn't become a threat to the play, which he doesn't, right? There's plenty of space here. If he doesn't become a threat to the play, then you're going to say, right, hand this thing off because we're running 5-on-5. That's a great situation, right? You want to run 5-on-5. All right. You want to run into even numbers, what we call it. Right. But this play, this read is clearly they have, I don't know if this is necessarily, we'll see what the other guys do here. Could have been a RPO, could also just be a run tag with a regular play, but it's an ill-advised thing to throw an inside post versus an inside leverage player, especially with a post safety, right? So you're already running the ball into even numbers. You may as well just hand it off, right? It's 1st and 10. No need to do this. Obviously, it's a no yes type situation because you get the thing completed, you get a 1st down. All right, so we've got zone read, we've got strong zone, weak zone. We talked about insert, we talked about split flow, right? We'll see here, right, with the motion. All right, again, right, same kind of a thing. Zone read, they're blocking 5-on-5 with the offensive line accounting for these guys. All right, and now this guy is being read by the quarterback. All right, now comes a little bit complicated. They've got a bubble here. He's going to push crack for him. He's going to block him. He would have pushed crack for him if he didn't have help here. All right, but you can see, right, again, there's a lot to teach here because you have to know as these two guys, right, you have to know who the quarterback is reading. Why? Because if you don't, then this is what's going to happen. Your wide out just push cracked for a safety that's already accounted for. We're taking 2 for 1 here, right? Whereas if you understand that the only way that this ball is getting thrown is if this guy involves himself in the box, right? This is the RPO read for the quarterback. So if that's true, if the quarterback is doing what he's coached to do, if this guy becomes involved in the box, then he's not going to be there for you. You're 2 for 2 right now. You guys are you're going to push crack to a guy that's already blocked, right? That's clearly not understood, right? And so these guys end up both trying to block the same guy, and you can see 14 comes off and makes the play. That'll drive your head coach crazy, right? So you can't have that. Everybody's got to be in tune to these details. That's why it's very important to get all this stuff communicated efficiently, and that's what's called expensive and not expensive, right? Whether how much it takes to teach it. All right. All right, so running weak zone here. All right, now the picture changes a little bit. They get a kind of a blitz look here. Could potentially not be a blitz. Sometimes teams play this far upfield or downhill. I believe it is a blitz. All right, but you can see again, 77 here, the left guard, right? He's got him and number 66 should be inside foot, right? Near foot to near number, plugging away until he commits. The second 77 flies like that, right? As soon as that happens, 77 and 66 should really be saying, go, 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 go. He's got to get hip to hip with him to overtake aggressively, right? And 77's got to be off, right? His inside arm here should really be uninvolved as much as possible so that his shoulders are square and he's ready to take this on. You'll see he gets flagged here, right? But that can't happen. Right. Whereas these guys on the front side, a lot less urgency, just understanding that this guy's flying outside. Now, 61 can just kind of wash him as much as he wants. 72 can just wait for 24 to get there and then come off for him. Right. But these two guys have to do a very good job on the backside. All right. Now, again, this might have been mid zone, but I believe this is designed for the running back to come up like this. They did it a couple times. The read spot ends up being like inside zone, but the path he takes to get there, I think, could be a little bit of a deception, whatever they're trying to do. I think it was, though. They ran it a bunch of times. Again, your tight end backside here. Now you don't have to read the C gap, right? It's a lot easier for your quarterback when he doesn't have to read the C gap and read an RPO, right? So now he can see, right? He thinks 38's far enough outside. He also probably sees, right now, they do have a bubble called, but, in this look, he hands it off. I'm not sure why. Whereas in the other one, maybe it's because in the other one it got blown up, right? But 38 kind of elicits the same reaction that he got on the last one where he threw it. All right. I think it's another look at split zone here, right? So what makes it split zone? Well, this guy's cutting across, tight end's cutting across the line of scrimmage for the first thing off of the edge, the tackle, the first thing off the tackle's ass, right? So now you can see that horizontal space is not there, right? 50 is playing a lot tighter to the line, to the tackle than the last guy was. So the tight end cutting across now is hitting him right next to the tackle. There's no way that thing's going to wind back. There's no space there because 50 does a great job of boxing this thing in tight to the line of scrimmage, right? Now, again, this is why we have RPOs and things like that, right? And I believe there was one call. I'll check the wide again. Yeah, they do, right? They get everything you would want to throw the bubble, right? Everything you would ever want, right? But the quarterback has to be accountable for this guy. These are the offensive lines guys. The quarterback is accountable for this guy. He gets two crazy good things to happen, right? It's hard to have him all the way turned this way to read the Sam while he's turned the other way. It's hard, but you get a crazy situation where you get safeties rotating away from where you've got the bubble and the Sam blitzing, right? Now, this could be because of the tight end motion across, right? But this safety is flying up to the post, right? They're in a corner blitz right now and the Sam blitz. This is like double go, right? This is an awesome opportunity to throw the bubble. Quarterback has to do a really good job of keeping his eyes to whoever it is that the RPO is trying to manipulate. Now, again, I'm not involved in their offense. I don't know what it is that they were doing game plan wise, so I can't speak for the kid, but that's just an example of it, and again, we talked about running it versus an A-gap player versus not an A-gap player. You can see here, if you're running any inside zone scheme and both of the A-gaps get plugged, you better hope you get movement, or you better hope somebody falls down backside or front side or something, because it is tough to run inside zone versus what we call a tight front, right? Both the A-gaps plugged, they stunt to it, but nonetheless, it's tough to do, man. You've got two guys just rooting themselves in. 95 there's 310 pounds, right? It's a really hard thing to do, right? And we'll get to the example here in a second that accounts for this, right? But things that can kill inside zone are unaccounted for players flying off of the edge and getting there before anything can happen, right? And we'll see how teams account for that here on this this next play. Maybe this one. Yeah. All right. So what we have here is zone insert. All right. So they're going to say, first thing, head up to play side, point minus, double minus. Now we can account for these 7 guys because we have this extra running back along with our 6th offensive lineman or tight end, right? So we can account for 7 now. All right. So we have this guy accounted for, him accounted for, and him accounted for. Now we're saying the tight end's going to man on block this end or C gap player, D gap player rather, right? He's going to take him. He's going to insert just like the tight end did in the other play, right? So this is zone insert. This is really strong, weak zone insert, all right, with a motion to cut off anything off of the edge to prevent, right? A lot of the times when you get to the goal line or close to it, the play call in the run game is inside zone. And the way that gets killed is exactly what we saw in the last play, guys off the edge. So the way that offensive coordinators account for that is by creating what's called a long porch or a long edge backside, by lengthening the edge backside, aka adding a tight end or 2, right? By doing that, you are now making the path that they have to travel wider, and then they have to get really tight again to make a really hard play. Whereas if you can imagine the tight end not here and a defensive end right here, right, that guy would have a lot easier time just coming right off the edge. So the way that you account for that is creating a longer porch or you motion somebody across, or do both as they do in this picture. You motion somebody across, one of the receivers, to just chip or get a piece of anything coming off of the backside edge, right? Now your running back's got to do a good job pressing the point. Hopefully you can hit it front side if they do bring backside pressure, or, you get the wind back, but you're just trying to get a couple of yards. So you really want to get that guy downhill. Now what you'll see here, this is crazy what happens, right? This is our double minus. This is his guy. He is being told, this wide out that's motioning, to take anything off of the backside edge, right? To prevent what we just talked about. This guy ends up flying off of the backside edge, probably because of the fact that he motions. It's probably something game plan oriented, right? But in doing so, he is doing his job, right? And he comes off for him, right? And ends up doing exactly what the motion guy does. You can see, right? They both go for the same guy, right? Because of the fact that, again, it's hard to coach these things when the picture changes on the fly. It's hard to prepare guys for that. How do you want to tell number 24 that this is not your guy, even though he's coming off the edge? How do you want to tell him to instead exchange responsibilities? Or do you want to tell the running back to exchange responsibilities, right? You've got to decide how you want to coach all these things in the most efficient way possible. You only get so much time in a meeting room to install these things. You have to try and account for all these things. And it's really, really challenging to do so, especially in a stadium like this where there's thousands of people, right? And everybody's yelling and your head coach is screaming what play, everything's going crazy. And you're just a 20-year-old kid out there. How well is that kid prepared, right? Can you get number 9? This is the art of coaching, right? Can you get number 9 to see that 24 is about to take my responsibility and pizza, right? You take mine, I take yours. Can you get him to instead chip the tight ends guy or go up for 15 so that we're not wasting a blocker? How do you want to do that? How do you want to handle it? That's kind of the art of it all, right? If they could have done it, right, then all of a sudden you got yourself a touchdown here, right? You're running off safeties. So, that's kind of that's more of, that was weak zone insert with a extra guy backside, right? This is the wide view of the same play. All right. But you can see kind of how this thing gets derailed, but you've got to make these decisions, and it's hard to do. It's really hard to do to figure out the best way to teach all these things to account for the most that the picture changes, right? Because you're watching the hours and hours and hours of tape. Hopefully the kids are, but it's your job. You have to figure out the best way to do it and teach it. Otherwise, the head coach is going to tell you there's no use in putting it in, because every time we run it, the picture changes and we seem to screw something up. Make sure I didn't miss anything. The only thing I'll say, and I think this is kind of interesting, I think it was 2 plays ago, instead of the only other one I could really think of that we do, at least, where we talked about split flow or split zone, right? Instead of cutting this guy with the tight end, sometimes you bluff him, get him to tighten down just like this. He loops around for the next guy. We call it alley seal safety, right? You first thing in the alley, right? Or you seal the box if something comes out, or you take the safety, right? So that if the quarterback gets that pull read where the guy flies inside like he does here, right? So if the quarterback was reading 50 here and he attaches to the tackle and there's no space there, and he does the same, he flies around him after bluffing him to get him inside, right? He would then block the first thing off the edge. If 36 comes out, right, you seal the box. If there's somebody in the alley, you take him, right? And the quarterback pulling it now is all of a sudden, the quarterback pulling it now is all of a sudden for a lead blocker, with a lead blocker rather. So you can kind of see how that would play out in this exact picture, right? That's kind of another fun way to run this thing, right? Now, I know the quarterback sees a corner blitz here and just wants to hand the thing off. You can't blame him for that, right? But you could see if they were running that here, all you would have to do, right, is bluff this guy, right, and have the tight end come out, block the corner. Your tackle would know that the quarterback has the ability to keep it and run off the edge. He would probably have some built-in coaching mechanism to tell him, hey, if he's flying outside, that's likely a reaction to a quarterback pull, right? He would try and be square, and now you're running off of a safety, right? So those are always good things. The only other thing I didn't really talk about was like option and duo and things like that. Option is, all option is really just putting everybody on a path down one way, and the quarterback reads him with somebody next to him as he runs straight at him, and then he can pitch it to him if this guy commits. Triple option is running like inside zone. You have another running back here. He becomes the pitch guy if this guy crashes down and makes it a pull read. So now you have the triple option being you can hand it off if this guy plays outside. If he plays inside, you can pull it, run it, or you can pull it, run it, and then pitch it once this guy commits or this guy comes out, whatever. Right, that's the triple option. Duo is probably more and more common in the NFL now. It's taught a little bit differently, but duo, all that is really inside zone, except the running back, instead of pressing front side, is really pressing backside. And actually in the NFL, they even, instead of pointing the front side guy, they point the play is called the other way. So these guys would be almost working to here. These guys would be working to here, right? And it's all kind of meant to wind back. That's the difference in duo there. But that's a little bit more common in the NFL world than it is the college, but it's now pretty common in college too. That's inside zone, right? And remember, the main part of it, right, is making sure you understand the read spot, right, and how that affects the leverage of everybody else's blocks. Everybody's protecting the read spot, right, in the offensive line world. All right, the other ones that we'll talk about, not this video, but another one would be mid zone, right? Mid zone would be the aiming point, is the butt of a ghost tight end, if you think about it like that, right? That'd be mid zone. All right, that's where the aiming point is. That's more apt to wind back. Outside zone, you're really trying to seal the box. You really want to get the edge with the running back. All right, those are zone plays, the read spot for the running back. All right, we'll talk about gap scheme things like power, counter, GAT, all the different kinds of ways that you can run that. But that's all, everybody kind of runs these things. It's just how do you teach those scenarios so that you get this guy and this guy on the same page, right? It's all, that's kind of the beauty of the whole thing, and what a lot of people fall in love with when they start doing this. But that'll be it. I hope this helps in some way. I hope somebody watches it till this point and they think, I learned something. I'll definitely post another one, but let me know what you think, or if you have any questions asked. That's how you figure out this stuff. And you're not going to be able to really you might be able to get some of this stuff in books and stuff like that, but coaches are very, very private and secretive. And I enjoy this stuff. Hopefully some people do too. But thanks for listening.